Over the past few weeks, the big concern has been, is the stock market crashing? What is happening with trade deals? What is happening with China? Like, are we going to be able to meet in the middle, or is this just going to be nonsense for the next God knows how long? We also had a viewpoint, and it's basically said from, Treasury Secretary Bissett that basically it's going to be 2 to 3 years potentially before China and America can come to a trade deal. However, this week we got some more news that trade deals regarding India and Japan are very, very close. Europe, UK don't seem like they're that close at all, but it seems like we're getting something in the pipeline. And the expectation has been, if you can get something in the pipeline, then again, we might get some momentum to get out of this bottom and start breaking back to the upside and finding overall support for these names. The other major part is you have earnings coming up for this coming week, which again is going to be very important as well because, we just had, for instance, Google earnings last night. And again, Google wasn't expected to be the greatest. Google wasn't expected to be the best. But when you look at, some of these earnings that are coming in this week, Google reported well. It did really, especially in the cloud and what was happening in that overall sector and what was happening there. Okay. So when you look here on this week, what do we have? Tuesdays when things could really kick off. You have Snap, which will again kind of affect the underlying Meta, things other names coming out. Spotify, a lot of just overall tech names, PayPal, Visa, etc. Right, and then going into Wednesday, things really heat up with Meta, Facebook, Microsoft, and then some huge Dow names here as well. QCOM, semiconductor name. And then Thursday, you have Apple and Amazon, which is the most important. Eli Lilly, you have big names overall, but important to understand why and what is coming up. So again, I think yes, the trade deal stuff is cool. It's good to see. Now the question is how close are those to actually being done? Honest to God, no one can give you that answer. But as we get closer, and it seems like the tone coming out of India is very good as well. That's very positive. Okay. So again, what I'm looking at, what I'm watching for, and I think the emphasis on this coming week is going to be earnings over everything. So I do expect some quietness, hopefully, as we go into this as well. Now, before we jump into too much here and go into the charts, I do want to say right now, if you're interested in Discord, the link is down below. You can see what we trade every single day. And again, what we did this morning, again, futures is where we kind of have the foundation of our trading. We said we're looking for the upside. So here at open, if the selling would continue, looking for 19.165. But if we mount above a 19.35, we're looking for a push near a 19.6. As you go into NASDAQ, obviously you got that nice push into 19.59. 10 points off, so close yet so far. That was a really nice push there. Now, where we saw the most strength in the market for me personally was more of semiconductors and what was happening there. We had the long on AVGO. That was probably the best looking play for that I saw out there. You broke up, you retested that at 188.5, got a little bit below it, but ended up pushing back into 193, our big target there. So that was one of the best trades that we had out there. We also posted that as well. Meta was a big trade from yesterday. So those are the stocks that we traded kind of here on the day. Now, we're going to jump more into what's happening with these stocks as well, because I believe, like I talked about yesterday, you're at very big levels, breakout potential levels, and I think you accomplished kind of a lot of what we needed to accomplish today, right? So we have a lot to talk about. Now, going really quick into the only fundamental thing that we need to talk about other than basically earnings is what's happening between China and the U.S. Now, again, this administration, you really cannot believe a word that is like kind of said. However, on the other side of this, isn't it crazy? They know to spawn. They know to feed me Volkswagen ads because Ali has a Volkswagen. That's crazy. Like, I don't even look at Volkswagens in my life. That ads are wild. Anyways, but going into this, very interesting to think about. We basically have America. We have Trump saying, I was on the phone with Xi Jinping, the prime minister, president, whatever you want to call it, of China. And then say we talk, and you talk about trade. It's not important what we talked about. What we talked on the phone. China says we have not discussed anything to do with trade, nothing along trade talks. This is fake news, the end. Trump's like, well, I'm not going to address that. It is what it is. And it kind of worked. It kind of works. Like, do we believe the communist country or do we believe the guy that just says a bunch of nonsense? Kind of got some upside on the day based off that what was happening there. And there was no other real news that was announced for the rest of the day. So again, what's happening there? Trump did acknowledge that he is working on over 200 deals, which I think is pretty ridiculous, to be totally honest. But again, there is a lot of pressure on these deals to get complete soon. And he's saying within the next 3 to 4 weeks. That's the most important part there. It's also important to understand that basically China said they are not willing to talk about trade unless all tariffs are nullified. And I think what Trump is trying to do right now is get as many trade deals done, get these solidified, and probably give even bigger benefits with these trade deals, basically if these other countries tag team against China. Is that a good idea? Probably not. We'll see. It's also very important to understand, we talked about Ukraine-Russia deal getting like solidified. It is shocking how quiet Russia has been. Like, I haven't seen anything about like in the news with Russia. Very weird. Like, I just want to point that out there, okay? So again, as we jump in here, again, SPY on the day, historical data, looking at overall volume. Pretty low. Past 2 days with this upside, we've had really low volume, 64, 60 mil, so not super great there. However, meat and potatoes. You said, Tyler, I'm hungry. I said, Timmy, I'm going to give you dinner. So let's talk about where you're at overall on the market and what's got me feeling nicey, right? So we're going to go to the 4 hour here first, and I just want to show you a few things. Number one, your big level. Your big level has been this spot right here, your March 10th, March 13th lows, okay? Very important level, massive spot that I've been watching. We've tested it a few times. We've rejected it a few times. Now you're getting above this. For instance, this puts us back before Liberation Day. But pre-Liberation Day, we were just sitting in this range here where we're popping up. So getting back in this level, and this is why I was targeting 19.6, is getting back and just right into that median point. So this is a great outing from buyers, despite low volume, right? I want to see a little bit of pick me up occasionally in the future, but in the short term, upside seems the most likely, especially if we get good earnings, okay? And again, I'm not going to anticipate earnings, but because Google, I did not think it was going to have great earnings, but it killed it. So awesome, like enthusiastic, right? So what we're looking at here is, can we continue this? Can we stay above 19.35? You got a strong daily close above this. You know, daily candle here, pretty much picture perfect. Like, it doesn't get much better than that on the daily candle. Fantastic. ES also doing kind of what you want it to do. However, ES is below that same level, which is concerning. ES is still below March 13th, March 10th lows. That is bad. You go into Dow, similar action here, except Dow's performing even worse. So this is the catch-22. This is the problem that you're seeing, okay? Is you're getting the NASDAQ clearly leading the market, right? Doing the heavy lifting, looks very good. On the other hand, you look at SPY, you look at Qs, like you look at SPY and you look at the Dow, and it's not as good. That is the concern. If you look at SPY, though, you are above that March 13th low. That's a good thing. That's why I like it as well. But as a whole, I would like to see ES and the futures on the S&P 500 start to perform better, okay? Important to understand that. Now, you're getting a lot of news about pharmaceutical tariffs and what's happening there. That's probably what's holding back the Dow and some of the S&P. But important to understand that there is a little bit of a discrepancy going on. Now, the other part of this, why I'm still pretty optimistic despite those being the lagging areas of the market. I'm not saying to ignore them. I'm just saying I'm still optimistic. Why? Well, the thing that really is awesome here is when you take a step back, the NASDAQ has been the leader over the past year, like 2-3 years, right? 2.5 years, right? The NASDAQ has been the leader. So it's not, I would rather the NASDAQ lead than have the Dow lead, for instance, right? I would rather this be the situation because, you're getting the areas of the market that have been the strongest and the names that have earnings coming up doing the heavy lifting. Semiconductors bouncing back, tech bouncing back, cloud bouncing back. Those have been the hottest areas of the market, and you want to see things get back to somewhat normal. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that tariffs are figured out. The bottom is looking potentially in, but it's especially after you got back above these major levels we talked about. Now, if we get above the 200 SMA, I'll talk about that in a second, but let me finish my thought. When we're getting to this point, you look solid. It'd be hard to ignore. Now, again, where things really change, where things really get good, where you start to be like, okay, a bottom is like, you look in, I mean, honestly, I'm looking for all-time highs, right? Is you start to break back above the 200 daily. Now, we're a ways off, right? I said yesterday, you were 30 points away yesterday, now you're like 25 points away, 23 points away. Okay, on SPY. On QQQ, you're around 20 points away, right? So you still have some distance to get there. Very important to understand that. Think about, extremely important to understand. We still have some ways to go, but you do have leg room into that spot now because as you get back over these massive levels, that's what you kind of have to look for. Now, on Qs, I would still look for like 479, how you react there. You'll have some smaller levels, but the top side of this is being the 200 SMA because that's our big test, and it would be pretty interesting to get that test and what we want to see. NASDAQ, similar thing. You get back above 19.6, you start pushing into 20,000 and then over 20,000, which was our high from Liberation Day. You push into 20,700. highly likely, right? Or at least the 200 SMA if it comes down lower. So again, what we're looking at, why we're looking at it. Now, a few things that we're going to be wanting to see is, does a volume align with this? Because you don't need, I say this all the time, you don't need high volume to move in a direction, okay? Like, you don't need high volume to go up to all-time highs. You don't need high volume to go to all-time lows. Even though when you're dropping, typically you see high volume. But when you're moving in a trend, you don't need that. You want to see higher volume when you're breaking out or reversing. You did get high volume on the reversal. I will say that. Down here, you did get very high volume, right? Granted, there was crazy fundamental news being announced, but whatever, right? So very important to understand that. But I would still, if we're breaking into the 200, I would like to see more aggression. I would like to see more buying happen across the board, okay? Now, as far as equities and what's happening out there right now, semiconductors, which I mentioned this yesterday, is that semiconductors were at a big spot, like the 210, 209 spot, right? You can see the little level I marked out here. But yesterday we had a lot of consolidation, like on NVIDIA. And I want to make sure I go over this because this is like a really good teaching, and hopefully you guys can get something out of this, right? So if I go to the replay, right, just real quick, just replay just yesterday's action. So market opens right there. So just replay to there. You basically consolidated all day, like above resistance, but like at like your breakout point here, right? So 104.8, 105 was your big level, but you just didn't get the breakout. And, I want to be really clear. Is like, I talked about this yesterday so much because I think, if you watch the pre-market live stream here, you got a good viewpoint. I was like, dude, semis are the must watch on the day. Like NVIDIA, AVGO, that's what you got to be watching. And you had a great push here. It was awesome. Like AVGO, I was looking for a retest of the 200 SMA, but you just went straight up, right? But when you get these consolidations, like above or even at resistance, and then you see the rest of the market running, it's typically a big sign that a breakout is likely there, right? And so a name that we saw even doing that today was like Apple, right? So Apple actually looks shockingly similar to NVIDIA yesterday. Apple kind of ran up, but it kind of just like stalled here at 210. And you have this massive area of illiquidity back towards 219, 222. I think it's really light. Now, I'm not going to say that Apple's going to feel this. It has to, but it's a really good setup. Looking at the overall market, everything is getting big bounces. Everything's getting back to big breakout points. This is what you want to see. NVIDIA, AVGO is killing it. Like AVGO is probably running back to 196, which is crazy to think about. Amazon breaking back above 2021 highs. Massive level here at 188. Tesla, although the news yesterday, we talked about the bull flag here above 262. We said it was a beast. It went straight up. We're almost to the 200 SMA. Be careful near the 200 SMA, though. Don't go long at the 200. That's a crazy thing to do. But again, you're getting that action that you want to see. Meta push back up to 550. Like overall, the names of what we want to see. Like your biggest movers are moving great, right? Netflix as well. Like they're all moving really good. So you're getting the action that you want. Okay, you're getting not just one area of the market finding love and the other area not. The other area just like watching or even pulling back, and which is kind of what we were seeing the past few weeks, right? We get some tech up, but semis would dip. We'd get semis up, but tech and cloud would dip, and cloud's going crazy. CrowdStrike occurred this morning as well. So it's important to understand that you're getting more than just one area, and this is good. Like again, I'm trying not to just paint like only like a great rainbows and unicorn type picture, but it is good what you're seeing, right? And again, you guys know I've been very cautious, very, very cautious. But like that's why I was yesterday. I was getting pretty optimistic. I was like, look, you hold 1935, 196 is your next level. Easy pickings. Like it was a gimme trade, right? So it's important to understand what you're looking for and why. And this is why I'm so big on having a watch list, on having a game plan every day when you go into the market. So you can even go back and like look at, well, why was I looking at this? Why was I looking for this viewpoint? Because again, when you're trading, everything needs to be repeatable. If your strategy, if your outlook, if your game plan isn't repeatable, it's not a strategy. Like it's just not. Okay? And if you're not able to having a repeatable strategy, then how can you have any sort of success? Because I don't think success is having one good trade, right? If you have one good trade, 5 good trades, that might be considered luck. But if you can consistently over 90 days have some, a 60, 70% win percentage, you're killing it. You have a strategy. You have something that works, that's tangible. You can go and mark down and look at exactly what you're doing, why you were doing it. And I think it's important that you get to that point of understanding that's the goal, right? I think people focus on the goal is like, I want to get to $100,000 from $10,000. And it's like, that's cool. That's a hell of a goal, right? But if you focus on saying, okay, well, how am I going to get there? My goal is to figure out how I'm going to get there. And then getting there gets a lot easier, right? And so again, I never try to push this viewpoint of like, buy Discord, you'll get rich. Do this, and you're going to make money. If you go against me, you're going to lose money. It's more of just explaining and trying to rationalize and have kind of a conversation with you, except you don't talk back to me. And if you talk back to me, it's usually with really mean comments. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm a big boy, right? But again, I just want people to understand, like, that's the reason for some of the success here on the channel, right? Is practicing consistently to refine and make sure that what we're doing is repeatable. And it's not just me saying, okay, well, I think this is going to happen. This has to happen. If it doesn't happen, we're all going to lose money, right? That's just like not logical. So it's really important. And that's something that I try to really hammer home with Discord, with my second YouTube channel as far as the education. If you guys aren't familiar, I'll post a video tomorrow on there too. But it's something that I really want you guys to focus on. Is like, that's the change. That's the thing about consistency. And like, if you are in Discord, I wanted to show you something else. Like, the reason why you see like the same people posting gains consistently is because they have something that's repeatable, right? They locked in, right? And I want to use like this guy Chef here as an example, okay? I'm not going to show you his messages because like I just don't want to show you they're private, and he sent them to me like a few years ago, right? But Chef here, he joined in I think he joined Discord in 2021, which is kind of crazy to think. I didn't even realize he was been in there that long, right? Like, kind of insane. But Chef joined Discord, and then he took a break from basically like 2022. I remember he sent me a DM. That's how I know. That's the only reason I know. And then he came back. He had like a lot of family stuff, and just like shit happened, like, right? Like, shit happened in my life, shit happened in his life, right? And so he took a long break. He had to figure out his life, figure out work, what he was going to do. He just figured how to figure stuff out. And then he came back in, I believe, early 2024, like in February, I believe. Like, he was still on and off throughout 2023, but he just wasn't active. And he was a lifetime member, so he was here with us. Like, he had the Discord. So he came back, sent me a message, and I remember we went through went through our course and everything like that. This is not saying that I made Chef successful by any means, right? But it's the fact that he came in, he said, hey, what do you think I should do? I was like, look, in my opinion, what you should do is you should just take a few steps back. You need to formulate a strategy, journal, understand what you're doing, etc. He took a 6-month time just like focusing on what he's doing. And I recommend you guys do this by yourself, whatever it may be, but focusing on understanding a strategy, how to trade, what to do. And Chef is literally I think he is one of the best traders in Discord now. I really do believe he went from being, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like from just awful trader, like literally awful, to now he's in Discord, in trading chat, literally helping everyone else make money along the ways, right? Identifying levels, what he's looking for, literally breaking it down. As you can see here throughout the day, he's trading Asia session, he's trading everything, right? But it's because he sat down, he formulated a strategy, formulated a plan. And again, so if you're in Discord and you see Chef commenting and posting gains, it's not because he's trying to flex, it's just that he's understanding what to do. This guy took a $15,000 payout, right? From trading options, got into futures, figured it worked out way better for him, made $15,000 in like under 30 days with top one. But it's just understanding what works and how to get to that point. Because I'm telling you, everyone that gets into trading, I was one of them, is you get into it, you have a set amount of money, you're like, okay, well, I want to get to 10x my money. But you don't focus on what you have to focus on. The focus shouldn't be the money. The focus has to be how I'm going to get the money. That's the focus. Again, to try to put a little education, give you guys a little bit of knowledge that maybe I wanted when I was getting into trading. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I have some education, another video coming out tomorrow. I'll probably go over more equities tomorrow. Have a good one, traders.